I'm so thrilled to be invited on your podcast.
I was really excited to have you on my podcast too, because I think you bring an amazing angle from, especially with like a finance or accounting background, like to that whole money mindset, which is like such a big discussion that I think is so important to have. And a lot of people avoid it because
Yes.
like there's this almost stigma, or I don't know, like it's not a stigma, it's more like this almost a taboo topic to talk about, or like it has been, and we're starting to normalize that money conversation a little bit more as time goes on, which feels really refreshing. But having that like accounting background, that finance background, but also like why I was so drawn to you was like you really defined how like self-worth is separate from like net worth, right? Like those things
Yeah.
are two totally different um topics. Like one isn't dependent on the other. And
Hmm.
I really loved that. Like I loved that
Okay.
mentality too. So can you before we like get into the whole spiel and all of the things, can you just like give us a little bit about like who you are, what you do, and just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So, I mean, my name is Melissa
Yeah.
Houston and I'm a CPA, but being an accountant was actually my second career. My first career was in social work.
No
So,
way.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's so aligned.
yeah. So that's why I put such a heavy emphasis on money mindset because there's a lot of fear and shame and a lot of negative feelings come up when people start talking about money.
Right.
And it's so common for women to be in my office or virtual office or what have you, and the tears start flowing and the feelings come out and the shame and the feelings of inadequacy and stuff. And it's like so interesting to me that we put so much value on how we manage our money and we put that self-worth attachment to it, but it's really not about self-worth like you talked about.
Yeah. No, it's not at all. And I find too like sometimes people think that like success and self-worth are validated by the number that they see in the bank account,
Yes, and
right?
and they're totally separate. And so often people believe that, it's all about how much money that they earn that makes them wealthy,
Mm,
but it's really about money management, right? Because if you
yeah.
have no money in your bank account, even though you're making a healthy amount of money, that's a red flag. There's something wrong going there.
I absolutely, you know what? I was having this conversation with my 16-year-old cousin. Okay. Like, all
Okay.
right. First of all, like, let's just talk about really quick how I went with him last week to a college fair. I was like, flashback, went into like time travel mode, and they're not even requiring kids to take SATs now in order to get into college, which like
Really?
it blew my mind. So that's like a whole conversation for a whole other day about like my opinion on that, because I had to
Yeah.
study my freaking ass off to get into college and get like all the high grades on the SATs and like, the 4.0 GPA or whatever it was. But I think what it all boils down to is like, because we have like these this money mindset around the number in our bank account or the amount of money, like going from like little Colin's perspective, the amount of money that we're making right out of college, that's going to define our self-worth forever moving forward. So just as like a little background story, he's 16, he's going to be 17 at the end of June. He was born the day after my high school graduation, which was like, I'm like, oh my god, it's coming full circle right now. But he was saying how he wants to be a corporate lawyer because corporate lawyers make a lot of money, and making a lot of money is going to set him up for some success. And like he wants to go to a specific area for specific colleges to really work on his network of people, because like certain colleges are known to have, I guess, wealthier individuals in their schools or whatever. So he's talking about this whole thing, and I'm like, Colin, your net worth, like how much money you have in the bank account, doesn't even matter if you don't know how to manage it properly. Because somebody who makes $40,000 a year, $30,000 a year, $100,000 a year can have so much more saved and making more interest and invested than someone who's making $1 million a year, because they're spending beyond their means. And what it all comes down to is how we value not only ourselves, but how we value the money that we're making and all the things around that. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a really interesting point, because when I talk to clients, we always talk about um, creating a business or creating a life that includes your values.
Right.
And your money values are very important, because if you're not aligned with how you're managing your money or how you're spending your money, then it's not going to feel good. The whole idea is to have a positive relationship with money.
Yeah.
And, I talk about this often, and people think, positive relationship with money, what is that all about? But it's really treating your money with respect, just like you would with anybody else, right? And when you treat your money with respect, you're managing your money well. What's the biggest secret of the wealthy? It's money management.
Money management.
Right?
Yeah.
Wealthy people know that they need to reinvest that money, keep it secure, and start living off that passive income that's coming in.
Yeah.
That's the ideal goal to creating wealth. But it's still, it has to be aligned with your values. So if you are investing in corporations that, doesn't feel right to you, or you're spending your money aimlessly without giving much thought to how you're spending your money, these aren't values aligned. Or if you want to, save your money to send your kids to college and pay for it, or help them pay for it, or, family vacations every year, what have you, doing good with your money is really important as well. And women, we definitely need more wealth in the hands of women, because women tend to do better things with their money.
She's like, I'm gonna just say it.
I'm just gonna say it.
I'm
It's true. Like
it.
what we do is we reinvest back into our communities,
Totally.
and we support other women businesses.
That's what it all comes down to too, is like we give back, I feel.
Yes.
So that's such an interesting statement too, because like even just like when I think about it from like my home perspective, right? Like from just being at home with like me and my husband. I love my husband to death. He's like my absolute soulmate, but we have very different, I don't want to say mentalities, but views, I guess. Maybe it's a mentality. I don't freaking know. When it comes to money, because like he has a very anxious attachment to it. And I, through my own like mindset work, have moved from a dismissive attachment where like I don't care about it, because I pretended like I didn't care about it, almost like this false sense of security, like, oh, it's like, it's all fine, no worries, like you figure it out, whatever. But now I have like this very secure money mindset where I do believe that everything coming in and coming out is just like the ebbs and flows of life. Like there's seasons and all the things. And he's like, if it's out for good type of a thing, like that, which we've been like talking through and working through, but sometimes you can't really work through the things when the person's closest to you. They need to kind of like hear it from like an outside perspective, or like, oh,
absolutely, that's so true.
But like for me, I'm like, I want to give our children like this allowance where when they're old enough, that they can kind of like divvy it up and like save a third, spend a third, and give a third away, where they're like giving back. And he's like, he says to me all the time, like, you always want to give back. I'm like, because that's what it all comes down to. I feel like the more we give back, because we're in a position, the more we open up a space for even more to come in, I guess.
Absolutely, I agree. And I'm kind of laughing on the inside, because you sound so much like my husband and I.
Oh. Okay, so like please explain. I would love to hear that.
Well, I mean, my husband definitely comes from more of a scarcity mindset, whereas I come from more of an abundance, right?
Yeah.
So, he does have those conversations with me. It's like, why are you spending money? We don't need to be spending money,
Right.
Stuff like that. And I'm like, it's, there's more coming in. It will always flow in. It flows in and it flows out. So I can totally relate to the conversations that you have with your husband. Sometimes it can be a source of contention, but like you said, when you walk through it and you talk about it, we just learn how to respect each other's opinions, and move forward together with our mutual value-based financial goals.
Totally. And like, I think that that open communication is so important, with, having a healthy marriage, number one, but number two,
Mhm.
also maintaining a really healthy money mindset as well.
Yes.
Right. So
And
I know, like, sorry, I know for me,
no,
like,
no.
in the past, like past life, Amanda, I have like I had lots of things going on before I entered like this era of personal development. I am in recovery for drug addiction, so I'm actually going to be celebrating 10 years clean next month. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm so excited. But like because of that addiction, I mean it was like all the things that came with it, right? So like lack of self-worth, lack of confidence, lack of care for anything material, including like my credit cards. Like I was maxed out on all my credit cards. I was taking out loans that I shouldn't have been taking out. I had pretty much damaged my credit to a point where like I had to pay $100 for a secured credit card in order to like get credit. And
Yeah.
that was 10 years ago. And that person, that four, like it was a four, like literally 400, starting with a 4 credit score, which is like, is that even allowed? Like, is that a thing? Like, yes, it is a thing because your girl here was dealing with that. But now my credit score is like 863 or something ridiculous like that. And
Amazing.
right. But like that took time, it took effort, and it also took creating this like healthy money hygiene. To know what's in my bank account, to know what my credit, like if I was maxed out on my credit or like how much of my credit I was spending, to have that debt to income ratio and like understand what all that meant. And for such a long time, like with my husband, because he comes from a finance background, like I just kind of like pushed all the responsibility onto him. And like I didn't take it on myself. I was like, just tell me what I should be budgeting and just tell me what I need to be spending. And I think that's so disempowering.
So now that you've gotten more control over it, how does it feel?
Like amazing. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to log into my bank account today and be like, "Oh my god, if this number is below a certain amount, then like I'm not okay for today." Like
Hmm.
I have a relatively good idea as to where my money usually is. And if it's not where I think it is, that calls for like a deeper dive into like what's going on underneath. Like am I overspending? Am I not sticking to the budget that I said I was going to stick to? Or did like my freaking credit card get hacked? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's great. And that's why I tell people always look at your bank account every
Yeah.
day. I do it every day just to make sure that everything is good and there's no foul play in there. Having a money mindset, like a positive money mindset, is so important for business owners to have because it's 80% behavior, right? And
Yeah.
I have a cash confident framework that I created. So I help business owners manage the finances in their business. But the first step is money mindset because that's where people get held back so often in their business. So
Right.
if you're running a business or just in your personal life, if you're not looking at what's going on, like I always say the analogy of check under the hood of your car, right? So many of us fear it. We don't know what we're looking at, like we're just like, I don't want to deal with it. But when you start looking at your numbers and understand what's going on, it brings you that financial confidence, just knowing what's going on.
It's like having just this radical awareness, because if we don't ever look under the hood, how are we going to know where our baseline is, or like how to make things better, how to cultivate more, or if we need to like go back and, readjust some wires, right? Do we need an oil change today?
Yeah, but it's the maintenance too, right? Like you mentioned,
Right.
oil change, like you have to do maintenance on things. And sometimes we take care of our cars and, our material objects better than we take care of ourselves and our own mindset.
Isn't that crazy how that happens
Mm,
sometimes? So
absolutely.
I'm really curious because I know like you are like the guru of like money mindset and all things finance. And I'm so excited for your book coming out, like the whole preparation. I'm so like, I'm loving hearing all about it. And I want
Thank
to hear
you.
more about your book in a couple minutes. But like, was there like a defining moment or something that happened where you're like, dude, it's not just about the numbers in my bank account. Like there's something going on underneath the surface that kind of needs to like check it before you wreck it. So maybe with like your
Yeah.
social work background, you were like a little bit more aware of your mindset. Like what was that like for you? Have you always been like this embodied like self-worth queen?
Well, it's such an interesting question because I too am human, right? And
Yeah.
I have my own story of accumulating a massive amount of debt.
I want to hear it.
So I've always been good with my money.
Mm-hmm.
And, like just a short timeline, learned about personal finance at a very young age. When we were married, we saved for our house, had a nice down payment, had same financial goals, followed through on the plan.
Right.
I think it's been about 8 years ago now,
Okay.
I derailed off that plan completely.
Uh-oh.
And I started spending money like crazy. Like I'm saying crazy because I racked up $100,000 worth of credit debt.
Wow.
And I hid about 50% of that from my husband.
You hit it.
I hid it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And I'm a CPA. I've been a CPA for over 25 years.
Right.
So what happened that made me go off the rails so badly, right?
Did you ever
And
figure it out?
I did. And
Okay.
that's why she means profit exists.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So going through that experience, I was like, okay, I got caught in that, spend, ran out of credit, had to tell my husband about what was going on. And, obviously dealing with the aftermath of that because my husband was
Right.
extremely disappointed in me.
Of course.
And I vowed to myself to never let that happen again. And in order to do that, I knew that I had to find out the root of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Why was I doing this? Why was I spending the money? Because I knew as I was spending the money and getting deeper into debt that I shouldn't be doing this, but I kept
Right.
doing it. Right.
Right.
And it all boiled down to my money mindset and my self-worth. And that's why I started focusing so much on money mindset and letting people know about this story. Because if it happened to me, a money expert, a CPA, personal finance expert, if it happened to me, it can happen to absolutely anybody. And to forgive your mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
often we live in the past and we carry around that shame and guilt, and you got to let that go. You recognize it, you correct it, and you let it go so you can help other people and either prevent it or help them get out of debt themselves.
As you were like talking through all that, I'm like having all of these little like trickles in too, because it's like there's this void, like almost like there was a void happening and like we're filling it with all of this spending, right?
All
So
the stuff.
with all this
Yes.
stuff, that's not the answer, right? So
No.
like going back to, and I'm not saying that this in any way, shape, or form to suggest like addiction, but for me, like with my addiction, what I noticed happening so much is that I always just wanted more,
Yeah.
right? It was like my brain was just programmed for more and more and more and more and more. And then it got to this point where like I had to face it, and I had to tell like my family, I had to tell everyone because I was so far in that I couldn't get out myself. And
Yeah.
I think what for me, like with a lot of like the work that I do now, like as a coach, it's not, diagnosing someone with an addiction, but it's more so thinking about like, what's the root cause of why I'm trying to fill this void in the first place? Right? Because it's not
Exactly.
about the drugs. It's not about like the shopping. It's not about any of that stuff. Because if it was, then it wouldn't be happening all the time. And it would feel like I was fulfilled after that first one, right? After
Hmm.
the first thing. So
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that because like I think sometimes like I do share about my struggles with addiction and stuff, but sometimes what's hard to relate to is the severity of like, abusing something versus having like an addiction. And sometimes people can see like, or can think that, well, I don't have a shopping addiction, or I don't have a drug addiction, or a food addiction, or this type of addiction. So, like, I can't relate to that. But when it comes down to talking about it, like happening to normal people on a daily basis, even someone who has like this strong financial background, like it can happen to anybody. Like, it's not like you're not broken, you're human.
Exactly.
right? And like it's
Exactly. And as you're
unhealthy.
talking about this addiction, like my mind wanders to like we could be addicted or over consuming anything. It could be
Yeah.
food, alcohol, whatever.
Mhm.
But it all boils down to the self-worth issue, right?
Exactly. As you were like discovering this and as you were having these tough conversations with your husband and as you were like redefining, not redefining, your relationship with money, what do you think was like one of the most important things that you uncovered that more or less allowed you to bridge the gap between trying to fill the void and then realizing that like you as a human are the one who fills that void and like that self-worth?
Yes. That is a complicated question.
Okay. It's probably multi-layered.
And yeah, and I love it. I love it because really, as I was peeling away the layers, because obviously this wasn't something that just a light switch came on and boom, I knew what the answer was, right? It was
Right.
uncovering and digging and getting to that point where it was really all about learning that it was all about self-worth
Yeah.
and reminding myself that me as a person, I am worthy just being me.
Yeah.
Right. So I am not suggesting by any means that I've got this licked because I don't. Right.
You just
I
got to
mean,
figure it out a little bit more than the rest of us.
exactly. Like the shopping, the spending, tamed and I'm back to my normal habits. But, I still have other habits like overeating that I need to start conquering. Right. So it's really just about defining what triggers us and how we can replace that reaction that we have to that trigger with something healthy.
Ooh, yeah. So defining or finding what triggers us. So how do you identify your triggers? Like, how do you
Um,
know when it's like being like when you're being triggered or if it's like, oh, this is maybe something I should take a look at? Like, what's like, where's that like difference for you?
it's such a good question, such a
Yeah.
good question. And for me, I feel it in my body.
Okay.
So if I'm triggered, my first reaction now, instead of, hitting online and start ordering things and, going into la la land, thinking about all the beautiful ways I can decorate my house,
Although that's
um,
sometimes a lot of fun.
it is a lot of fun for sure. My mind still wanders to other bad habits where it would be like overeating, right? So I would be thinking like, oh, I should probably go get some chocolate to just make myself feel better. So
Right.
whether it's shopping, drug addiction, I don't want to equate the thing, but it's kind of the same thing
Yeah.
where it's that reaction to having that trigger,
Right.
whether I want to drink, whether I want to smoke, whatever the case may be. And realizing for me, it's in my body and I can feel it that I have to start identifying that behavior
Mm-hmm.
and then think about, okay, instead of eating that chocolate, what can I replace that with? What would be more positive? Can I go for a walk?
Yeah.
Does time permit? Am I able to go for a walk? Do I need a 5-minute break? Whatever the case may be. And
Yeah.
then replacing it with that behavior. And then hopefully you've done it enough times that it becomes habitual,
Well,
but it
right.
takes work, right? And that's the key. It takes work.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people think that like, going to the gym one time or paying off
Oh,
their
if it
credit
were
card
that
debt
easy,
one day
right?
that like all of a sudden everything's like
I'm
magically better,
cured.
right? It's all cured because I decided today is the day that I'm gonna pay off one credit card or I am gonna, spend an hour on the treadmill or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think, Rome wasn't built in a day. And
No.
like you said, like those actions do become habitual and eventually the more we devote time and energy to those actions that are bringing us closer to the life we want to be leading, then it sort of like becomes a value, right?
Mhm.
Like it becomes a value.
Yeah. Yeah. And it becomes a habit that you don't want to lose.
Right. So I think it's like a good question. I like to call myself like the queen of questions because I love questions. But like a good question to ask yourself and like let me know if you agree with this is like, is this action that I'm taking right now? So like the chocolate or the drink or the pressing, shop now on the, Wayfair to decorate our new office or whatever. Is this action going to take me closer to the outcome I want or further away. And anytime I kind of like take a look at that, it helps me to decide, is this like ego driven, or is this something that I can be proud of myself tomorrow and be like, I fucking did that.
Yes, and it's such a good question to ask ourselves. And you have definitely planted that seed where I need to start asking that question to myself more and more.
Yeah, I think it creates like this radical self-awareness almost,
Yes,
right? It's like, how can we change anything if we're not aware that it's going on underneath the surface?
self-awareness is
Right?
key.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
in
talk about
everything you do.
do you talk about self-awareness in Cash Confident?
I talk about money mindset and
Okay.
to a degree about self-awareness, but it's also a book where we don't focus 100% on the money mindset part of it. There are some a lot of practicalities in the book as well. So,
Mhm.
like I had mentioned, I have the 5-step cash confident framework
Yeah.
that we go through in the book. So the first step is the money mindset. The
Okay.
second step is understanding your financial statements.
Okay.
Third step is creating a financial plan for your business, having those financial goals, having that pricing strategy, stuff like that. Step 4 is monitoring your progress against that plan. And step 5 is cash management. So it's really looking at how to serve the entrepreneur and business owner the best possible way financially. So encompassing all of that information together, talking about having the courage to claim your financial goals, because for a lot of people too, a lot of people are scared to claim wealth, right?
Mm,
They're scared to get out of
yeah.
debt and turn, what is a stressful situation into something that feels good, and they're financially secure and financially confident. So having the courage to just own those goals that you have is so important.
Oh my God, that's so important. And you as you said that, like people are afraid to take those steps towards more like empowering and desirable futures, especially in regards to money. You know what came up for me? It's so interesting. So we have like this subconscious programming, right? So what we believe about money, what we believe about wealth or finances, success, or all of the things, like our deepest beliefs about that, like aren't even ours to begin with, because we take on generational beliefs from our parents and from our grandparents and da 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 da. Like, my grandpa, my papa, God rest his soul, I love him so much. He used to say all the time, like, always save your money. And like, well, Papa, I absolutely agree with you. It is so important to save your money. It is also important to invest your money. And it's also important to like, reward yourself with your money. And it's
Enjoy
also
your
important to
money.
like
Yeah,
do fun things, like to have adventure with it too. And something that I discovered, at least through my own subconscious programming, is that like if I were to think about the first impulse response when I say money, or the first impulse response that like the first word that comes or the first sentence that comes when I used it, I should say when I used to say money, it used to be bad. Money is bad. And then the next one was people with money, and it was are spoiled. And because I didn't want to be spoiled and I didn't want to be bad, subconsciously I was blocking my own success. Right?
exactly.
How wild is
Yes.
that? Like, and I didn't
It's
even know it.
crazy. Yeah.
See.
Yeah, all part of your money mindset. And having that money story too is such an interesting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that we talk about in the book as well. But my grandparents were of the Depression era,
Okay.
and then
Yep.
my parents were like, carrying that money story along, and it,
Right.
came to me. And, while some money stories can be great, other money stories, and the reality of it is most of us have negative money stories,
Yeah.
and we carry these money stories without even realizing that they're holding us back.
Mhm.
So it's really important. That's where self-awareness comes in as well. Being aware of the money stories that we're telling ourselves so we can end it.
Yeah, we could do the work. We can create the awareness. We can end it. No, that's all so good.
And I love what you just said, where it's like, do the work, because it is a lot of work.
It is
And,
work.
but it's worth it,
So worth it.
right?
It
Like
it is.
anything worth having takes effort.
Yeah. And, sometimes I think that some people think that just like, getting the high ticket client or, opening the business or whatever is going to solve all the problems. But like,
It
guess
doesn't.
what? If you're not working on like your own belief system, like you're going to just repeat that same pattern, but like with your business,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That
Yep.
high ticket client, all the profit you made, if you have this belief that like money doesn't stay in your bank account, like you're gonna unintentionally but intentionally go and do that binge shop.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
don't.
So what happens is we always get into these mindsets where it's like, okay, well, if I made, $10,000 this month, or if I made $100,000 this month, or $1 million, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, because if you've got that money mindset, that money's flying out the door and you'll have nothing to show for it at the end of the month, regardless of how much revenue you're bringing in.
That's why like when like people win the lottery, they're like,
Yes.
right?
Such a good example.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So you cover all that in your book?
Yep, we talk about that. I talk about it in podcasts. I have a money mindset workbook that I have for clients. Actually, for now it's a free offer, one of the book
Ooh,
bonus bundles.
okay.
You pre-order the book because the book comes out May 16th, but if you pre-order it now, you get access to a book bundle bonus for free, and one of them is like 100 pages of money mindset work that you can do, and it's all
Like
free.
that in itself is like worth
Yeah.
millions of bucks. Like that's invaluable. I feel like the money mindset that we do is so invaluable because not only does it, I don't want to use the word heal, but like it does. It
It
heals, like it
does.
heals our soul a little bit, but it
Yes, it's
also
nurturing.
it's nurturing. It shapes us as humans, as like even those of you who aren't entrepreneurs, it's definitely something to take a look at because like you don't only
Mhm.
have to worry about like how your money mindset is inside of your business, but like it also shapes your relationships in like all areas of life. And like if you are a mom or if you're a caretaker or if you're somebody who has like young kids in your life, how we treat our money is how they learn to treat their money. So when you do the like regulation around it, like for yourself and like heal that anxiety around it, you're actually setting up future generations for success too, right? Because they
Yes.
see that, they model it and they want to like,
Yeah.
that's how they are going to treat their money and like how they talk to themselves too.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Right? It's so fun. So, Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about like a little bit more about the book coming out, maybe a little bit more about the freebie and like where our listeners can purchase that if they would like?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, the book, Cash Confident, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Creating a Profitable Business, will be at May 16th in
Yay.
all bookstores, Barnes and Nobles,
That's
Target,
so
wherever
exciting.
you buy your books,
Yep.
and on Amazon as well. So, if you're interested in grabbing the free book bonus bundle, go
Duh.
to melissahouston.com, go to the
Which is
Cash
linked
Confident.
below.
Awesome. Thank you. Go to the Cash Confident page, and if you'll see where you enter your name, your email address, and the proof of purchase, and you will be emailed immediately the book bonus bundles.
That's so awesome. So to everybody listening, make sure you go check out Melissa. I'm gonna also link her Instagram page too, so that when her book does come out in Barnes and Noble and like all of the big stores, you can take a picture of it and tag her and give her some like celebratory confetti
Oh, that would be
moments because
amazing.
isn't that the best though? Like it's happening in real life. Like how does that feel? How does that feel?
It feels very surreal. It
Wow.
does. Like, not in a million years would I have thought 5 years ago that I would be doing this.
Well,
And
congratulations.
it's such an accomplishment.
That is like an ultimate accomplishment. And like
Yeah.
as you're saying that, I'm almost have like tears in my eyes. I don't know where that emotion is coming from, but I'm like, that is like something to be so freaking proud of. So like I really do hope you're
Especially,
like working and twerking and like
oh,
celebrating
I
the shit out of
am.
yourself.
I am. Especially since, I did it against all odds. I knew I wanted a traditional book deal. Everybody told me there's no way I could get it. My audience was too small, and
And here you
I
are.
did it. Yeah,
So, you know what? Let you be the inspiration for the person listening to that. Like, if there is a
exactly.
goal or if there is a dream, that you don't have to have a certain number of followers, you don't have to have like a certain dollar amount in your bank account. Like, just freaking go for it, because if you
Just
don't
do
go for
it.
it, it will never happen. But if
If
you do
it's
go for it,
Yes, if it's screaming at you to do it, you owe it to yourself to do it.
absolutely.
Forget who's saying, no, you can't do it. Just prove them wrong.
Yeah, mute
Yeah,
them or block them and just be like, "F
exactly.
that, like, I'm gonna go do it anyway."
Exactly. And it feels awesome being on the other side of success.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Melissa, like, thank you, thank you, thank you for this amazing, empowering conversation around
Thank you
money
so
and money
much.
mindset and all of the things. I definitely think I learned a lot, and I can't wait to
So
like
did I.
deeper. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for everybody else, you know where to find Melissa. All of her social links are below. The pre-sale on Amazon is also linked below as well. Make sure you take a pre-sale on Amazon for Cash Confident is below. So be sure you go and check out that book and go show her some love. So to all of our listeners, I love you so much. Please comment, like, subscribe, review, all of the things. And remember, you are you, and that is your superpower.